I think we're going to be talking about how digital apps have become the new arteries of economic life in India. I think for all of us in the room, we all know this very well. The way we interact with our technologies is channeled through these incredible apps that exist. India now has over 90 million small merchants that are transacting digitally through UPI platforms, such as Paytm, PhonePe. We have a representative from Google Pay today. Thank you for being here. WhatsApp, which is now a business backbone for home run and micro enterprises in the country, enabling entrepreneurs all over the country to communicate in local Indian languages. We have Divya from the Meta team. Thank you for coming. Instagram and Facebook Marketplace have also enabled thousands of women-led businesses, from home bakers and craft sellers to tailors and wellness providers, to reach customers all across the country. In many ways, we are looking at a world where access to opportunities has been more, or has been less constrained than it has been before, which is very exciting. Digital access has unlocked economic participation, which I think is super exciting for all of us to see. And yet challenges remain. Only 33% women-led enterprises feel confident in managing their online visibility, according to a UNDP Digital Inclusion report from last year. And furthermore, limited data literacy, algorithm-driven visibility, and platform control have introduced entirely new vulnerabilities that didn't exist 5 to 10 years ago. And I think that brings us to this question today, so generously co-hosted by Tata Communications, on as apps become our new economic infrastructure in the country, not just for people in urban communities all across the country, how do we make sure that these apps empower marginalized entrepreneurs and low-income communities, and we don't entrap them in entirely new set of problems that didn't exist before? I think of George Bernard Shaw saying, technology cannot solve a problem without creating 10 more. And I think deeply about all the positive stories we have seen in India in the last 10 years of how tech has enabled entirely new forms of access and dignity for our communities. So with cautious optimism, we'll start this panel and look at what's happening. We'll start with you, Divya, shall we?
Yeah, sure.
So Divya, you are head of strategic programs and partnerships at Meta. Congratulations.
Thank you, Manu.
Platforms like WhatsApp and Instagram have become core infrastructure for how people communicate, market, and transact, especially in small towns in India. How does Meta see its role evolving from being just a platform to being a part of the digital public infrastructure that supports Bharat in all of its entirety?
That's a multifaceted question, Manu, and I'll try to cover a few aspects as I talked about it. Small businesses today are leveraging Instagram and WhatsApp as their digital, storefront, and it includes sharing your catalog and making payments, right? So we're pretty much kickstarting their digital journey on WhatsApp. And we're not stopping there. We know the entrepreneurs need support. So through our skilling programs in the various towns, through local agencies, we're also empowering them on how they can leverage WhatsApp to do more with their business. But what's interesting is it's not just the businesses. We're also seeing this across governments. Earlier this year, we launched something known as Manamitra. We partnered with the state of Andhra Pradesh to launch a WhatsApp bot, which currently provides 700 plus citizen services. So imagine you're a resident of Andhra Pradesh, whether you want to book a bus ticket, or you want to do a temple darshan, or you want to know what welfare scheme is applicable to you. All of this is now available to you on a single number, on the platform of your choice, in the language of your choice. So this is not a one-off thing that we're seeing. After Andhra Pradesh, we launched a similar solution with the state of Odisha. It's called Amasathi. It's gone live. Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra are being built as we speak. So what it's actually doing is ensuring that citizen services and the benefits that are intended for residents of India are reaching the length and breadth of the country. And let's not, maybe quickly I'll talk about Instagram, right? It's taking India's talent to the world. I'll give you an example. Just look up this gentleman. It goes under the name of Rizwan_freestyle. He's a freestyle footballer from Mallapuram in Kerala. So he shot a reel, ahead of a waterfall. It went viral. And he now holds the Guinness Book of World Records for the most viral reel. He has 2.6 million followers on Instagram. So he comes from a small town, didn't have a really, jazzy production house supporting him, just a camera and some passion, creativity. So it just goes to show that creativity knows no bounds and we can really take India's talent to the world. But just to say, Manu, I think we're just about getting started. We've just scratched the surface. And I think there's a lot more that we can all do together in this space.
That is pretty exciting. Thank you for that. Urvashi, welcome. You're the founder and director of Digital Futures Lab, an organization that does such incredible work, and you should all be looking them up and what they do. I want to ask you, what design principles should guide platform features for low literacy and low tech users? How does one even start looking at building systems that are accessible and inclusive for communities we all care deeply about?
Thanks, Manu, and thank you to Tata Communications for organizing this panel, and of course the Charcha team for organizing this fabulous event. I am the only academic on this panel, and I will stay true to what it means to be an academic, which is to point out what the challenges and risks are, and be a little bit of a pessimist on this. So, I'm looking at the title and it says apps is the new infrastructure, right? So as we think about something that's infrastructure, I think we need to think about, and so I'm just going to take a step back before we get to design principles, right? So as we think of something as infrastructure, I think we need to think about who controls that infrastructure, who governs that infrastructure. And I think right now we are in a little bit of murky territory, because what we see happening in the country is that infrastructure is controlled by very few people. And that infrastructure is largely controlled by a few private corporations. You have a private authority over what we're calling public infrastructure, right? So there's a structural issue here that I think we need to address. Before we even get to thinking about the design principles. And I thought what was really interesting about the way the panel was framed was that you were asking this question about structural dependencies, right? Like, what are the dependencies that we're creating as people are using these apps? And that's not a question that gets asked very often. Very often we talk about digital skills or, things like that. But here you're asking a very crucial question about what is the kind of dependency. So the dependency that is getting created here is that we're creating this huge number of entrepreneurs, but we are making them dependent on a very few number of platforms, right? And so it's not enough just to design those platforms better. What we actually need is to create the structural conditions in which you have many more platforms, so you don't have any kind of monopolization in the kind of platform economy, right? In the platform space. And what that means is that we really need to think about something about network effects, right? So network effects means that the more people that there are on a platform, the more useful it is to be on that platform, and it creates a kind of lock-in for your entrepreneur, right? So that means that the entrepreneur then can't go to another platform. It also means that the platform has an inordinate amount of influence in actually shaping the policies of that confront the entrepreneur, right? So one of the things that we therefore need to think about is interoperability, right? We need radical kind of interoperability so that an entrepreneur who's on one platform can then also go to another platform and also go to a third platform. You'd asked us to think of examples, Manu, and in India, UPI is a really good example of kind of radical interoperability, right? It's probably one of the most interoperable payment system that we see anywhere in the world. So that's one big piece of it. I want to just flag a second one, and then we can come back to some more in the second round of questions. The second thing that I think we need to think about is that when you have that platforms through the algorithms that run these platforms, they also end up controlling what the discoverability of particular businesses, right? They also end up influencing how businesses are ranked. Content moderation policies end up shaping what gets seen to the end user or to the consumer or not, right? And there is very little transparency to the entrepreneur or even to the consumer on how these algorithmic practices are working. So if we're trying to think about this question of dependency and we want to think about true empowerment, then we also have to look at the algorithms that are shaping this demand and supply, this market interaction on the platform, right? So I think we have to think about these structural issues before we get to the design principles. And maybe in the second round of questions, I can say a little bit more on the design principles.
That sounds great. I think what I took from that, I love the word you used on radical interoperability. I think that is definitely something to take home and think deeply about how do we get there. Sushant, welcome to the panel. We've been thinking deeply about barriers that exist for our communities. At Karya, we see so many fascinating barriers. I remember one from our early days. We employ low-income communities to build data sets for AI models. I remember the record button on the Karya app looked like a microphone, and people would not click it because even for us, how many people have actually seen a microphone? Well, I'm holding one right now, but how many people have actually seen a microphone? So we had to change what the record icon looks like to match the recording that they would be doing, which is putting the phone closer to their mouth. And all of these barriers that exist that prevent our communities from actually using the systems we're designing for them. Despite this increased access, only 33% of women entrepreneurs feel confident in digital marketing. Could you give me some examples of barriers that persist, from skill gaps to algorithmic opacity, like what Urvashi was talking about, and how do we go about addressing them?
Thank you, team and Tata Communications, for inviting me here. I'm not a academician, but I'm the voice from the field today. We run a program called Empowered, which is being implemented in Jharkhand and Orissa, and we work with ultra-poor families. And our journey started a few years back, so I'm going to share the experience and what we have seen in the field. Firstly, we realized that digital empowerment is just not giving a device or tool or one-time training. That was very clear, that if you give somebody a tool, it doesn't mean that that person is digitally empowerment. Or access to technology or tools, we felt that it doesn't work. Giving them confidence and power and continuous coaching has really helped them in coming as an entrepreneur. I'll give you an example that individuals, especially marginalized community, extremely poor people, they gain knowledge, confidence, and tools to improve their lives and the community in which they live. So that's what I wanted to say. In fact, in terms of barriers, there are several barriers. If I start telling you the barriers, it will be 12 o'clock, midnight. So I have chosen few. The first thing I feel that a skill gap. A skill gap, when I say skill gap is not a one-time training which is given by the frontline worker or by the local official. It's a continuous coaching and mentoring, and where the role of Anganwadi workers, ASHA workers, or frontline workers are very good. We have felt that those female who are 50 plus are not very equipped, and they take some time, but those young women, they are very easy. Second, I feel that biasness, the structural thing you speak about, we feel that there are some kind of biasness, and women control, our project participant control, कि हमारे product की तो कोई visibility नहीं है, चूँकि it's in local language, it's not in English. तो ये हमको बहुत बड़ा लगा. और ये लैंग्वेज और जो डिज़ाइन का जो बैरियर है, ये बहुत बड़ा बैरियर है, बिकॉज 80% ऑफ आवर प्रोजेक्ट पार्टिसिपेंट कैन नॉट रीड एंड राइट, सो वी यूज द लैंग्वेज. In fact, we have developed our own app with the help of Tata Communication. It's in 7 languages, including Santhali and Ho, because we felt that our first round of app didn't work. And we also realized in the process that they are more aware, they were more reflective, and the kind of suggestions which they gave for the second app, which our IT head also couldn't give. So they come with the local wisdom, and we also promote their indigenous knowledge. Third, we feel that fear and misinformation because of many things going on, even in the local local newspaper, and so fear is there that I can be caught. And fifth, I feel that we work in a very remote area, hard to reach area. Connectivity is a big problem. Sometimes you have to go on hilltop. In fact, me and Pallavi visited a place in Dumka where we are completely cut off from the network. There was no phone call. There was no network. So people have to go on the tree. So like these are the few things which are the real barriers.
Thank you for sharing that. I think, Sushant, your team has done incredible work on building technologies that are accessible to people in languages like Santhali, and I think this is brilliant. Thank you for sharing your expertise. Riddhima, welcome to the panel.
Thank you.
You are the business lead in strategic partnerships at Google Pay. Super happy to have you here. What unique opportunities have you seen at Google Pay that you've been able to enable for nano and home-based businesses, especially women and first-generation sellers, in terms of digital payments, visibility, and financial growth?
Yeah, thank you for having me here, Manu. So at Google Pay, we've tried to design a platform which is useful from day one for smallest of entrepreneurs. For them, technology isn't just about mere sophistication. It's more about stability, visibility, and trust. With this in mind, firstly, enabling effortless and inclusive digital payments, wherein merchants can accept UPI payments instantly via a simple QR, no fees, no hardware, money straight to the bank. We are also now supporting RuPay card acceptance, like in addition to UPI, on the platform. There are also optional tools like SoundPod, which kind of turn every payment confirmation into public moments of trust, which is very, very crucial in busy or low literacy environments out there. Secondly, solving for the visibility across the Google services. Merchants can actually link their businesses, their shops, to Google Business Profile via their Google Pay for Business app, thereby gaining online visibility across Google Search and Google Maps. They can add data about their businesses, about their shops to their map listings, get reviews from customers, come up their organic searches, increase organic discovery, and hence grow their business. Thirdly, transcending beyond just transactions, we've also enabled pathways for financial growth, leveraging the digital footprint of the merchants on the app. Merchants can now access collateral-free business loans from regulated lenders on our platform. Essentially, the digital footprint of the merchant gets converted into a creditworthiness score, thereby providing formal credit to these hitherto unserved merchants out there. This credit we've seen is largely used by these merchants maybe for their business expansion, for hiring a helper, for adding a delivery vehicle, for renovating their shop, overall helping to enhance their business which is out there. So in a nutshell, our endeavor is to actually grow beyond a payment app, to act as a digital identity and a growth platform for our merchants. We've tried to create a fair wheel across payments, commerce, marketing, and finance, and thus help in transforming the businesses of these smaller merchants.
I think definitely the pieces around being a growth platform and digital identity is very, very exciting, and I'm happy to see that that's happening. Pallavi ji, saving the best for the last. How can CSR programs support digital skilling and entrepreneurship in communities with limited infrastructure? Could you give me examples of what you've seen at Tata Communications where you've been able to see the impact on the ground? Yeah.
Thanks so much, Manu. I think I'm probably in the wrong panel, not because of anything else, but there's so many tech-savvy people here. I am very paralyzed when it comes to tech. But I want to answer your question with an example of one of our programs that even Sushant was talking about. So when we try and develop, and especially during COVID, when everything moved to a digital platform, we thought our remote programs, that Jharkhand and Odisha, would be the first to break down, and there would be no connectivity. because they are in the most remote places of the country. We have projects in cities as well. But just because, a digital device was already available with them, we are able to transfer everything into a digital device. Learning programs went on digital LMSs, etc., etc. The other thing is that, when we design programs, we have a very, I can say, we look at just one perspective, which is basically, let's just develop an app or a platform, and we see it from our perspective. Sometimes we forget that one size fit all is not the solution. So they may come from the same communities, or they may come from the same background, but they have different cultural backgrounds. They think in separate ways. So I think when you go on ground, take an app to them, it's very important to think about what is it they want in the app, not what I want in my app. I may want thousands of things which are useless for them. That's how at Tata Com we have tried to develop programs by taking feedback from the ground. When it comes to digital skilling and where remote areas the infrastructure is very low, we try and figure out what is it that will work best for them. So if I'm saying that, okay, I want to have an LMS, a learning platform, or I want to have digital sessions for training programs, sometimes we forget that there is no connectivity, there's no laptop there. So then you have to make changes in the content. And that has to fit in your whatever device you have, which is the phone. The smartphone is the easiest one to do it. So when we talk about skilling in remote areas, again, we go with a lot of perspective which says, let's skill them on digital programs because, there's a market trend for that. It's a growing business. But again, the youth who you are targeting may not have that sensibility, or they might be looking for something else. So 3 things that I have learned through my projects, whether it's Empower in Jharkhand and Orissa, or we work with another skilling program, which is mostly in urban areas. One is, don't make apps or develop platforms which do not cater to what the need of the community is. I may need 1,000 things, but does not make sense to them. When you make it, please think it from, and Urvashi and Riddhima and everyone was talking about, how AI works, right? There's a disparity. We all talk about, how AI takes into a lot of information, and I'm sorry I'm saying this to you, Manu, but there is, where sometimes we don't think about how women entrepreneurs, I'm talking from a women entrepreneur's perspective and skilling, some things are not accounted for when it comes to women. So when I'm developing programs for women or platforms or digital devices for women, I need to think from that perspective. We need more of that gender, diversity there, inclusivity. That's my opinion from what I've learned from my projects. And the third thing is, when you are training them, sometimes we forget that the training not only requires a digital device or a digital platform for that matter. There is a lot of other things that goes with it, which are more softer and qualitative. I think, and making sure that there is a mix of both in that is going to help when it comes to in remote areas I'm talking about, because sometimes we forget about these smaller aspects and the qualitative aspects of it.
Absolutely. I think I'm just so happy to see the richness of the answers you've had on the panel, because we have, representation from the market forces. We have Google and Meta. We have representation from academia, Dr. Urvashi. We have representation from the ground, and we have a representation from the philanthropic ecosystem. As we move to the second and the last question on the panel, before we turn to the audience, I hope you all have lots of questions. Please feel free to scan the QR code, go to Menti, ask us tough questions, and then maybe we will not answer them. But please ask us questions. I want to start the second round with Divya and Riddhima. So we'll start with the market forces. We'll then come to Sushant for you to get your feeling. Then we'll come to Pallavi ji, and we'll end with you, Dr. Urvashi. Okay. Divya, Meta is basically right now leading the evolution of social commerce in India. I think you've done a fantastic job in making these technologies as accessible as possible. I'm a big fan of what you all are doing in Andhra Pradesh with WhatsApp. I think it's been really, really remarkable. Could you just walk me through how have you seen this evolution of social commerce, particularly among micro and women-led businesses, and what role is AI now playing as we start hopefully entering a world where language access, where information access is becoming more and more democratic? What are you seeing?
Yeah. So let me break that into two parts and let's talk about the evolution of social commerce first. I think what we're seeing is messaging and conversational commerce are taking center stage. Let me leave you with a statistic. Over 60% people that are on WhatsApp today interact with the business every single week. So what that means is businesses are going chat first. People want to interact with businesses, small businesses, large businesses, in the same way that they interact with their friends and family, right? So businesses are also meeting customers where they chat first. And programs like Meta Verified are helping smaller businesses build that credibility on WhatsApp, right? Because we talked about the fact that they've become digital storefronts for these businesses. They've become the first digital journey for them. Now, let's just shift gears and talk a little bit about AI, because I think it will talk to Sushantji's points and a lot of points that we talked about in terms of barriers. Now, when you turbocharge this journey with, say, AI, the story now enters into a very exciting new phase. So AI is really helping small businesses, whether it's a home baker or a local boutique. Conversational bots and AI agents are now helping them look and operate like big brands. What do I mean by that? Like, if you have a conversational bot, you can answer questions instantly. You can stay available 24/7. So you're building that trust essentially through consistency, right? That's the real power of AI. But the power of AI is not just restricted to businesses. Sushant talked about the fact that, people struggle with vernacular. Digital literacy is not the same across the country. Not everybody is comfortable typing, engaging with technology in the same way. But now with the power of AI bringing in voice and vernacular access, I talked about some of the bots that we've built with some of the state governments. A farmer sitting in the state of Maharashtra in a village can just pick up the bot and say, "Mujhe mandi mein jowar ka bhav janna hai." He doesn't have to type. He doesn't have to learn anything new. Technology is meeting people where they are. That is true inclusivity, right? I also, want to talk about some of the things that we're doing to building the confidence. Some of the folks also talked about, digital empowerment is not just about giving them access. It's also about giving people the confidence to use that technology, right? And that's the reason why we continue to double down on programs like Bharat Yatra. So last year in December, we kicked off a WhatsApp bus, a very simple initiative. We said, listen, we'll cover 10 small towns and empower 20,000 small businesses. As an entrepreneur, you can step into the bus, you will see hands-on demos, and you'll understand how you can use WhatsApp to get your journey started. So it's a very, very simple initiative, but something that cuts down barriers. And outside of business, I think AI also has implications in the non-profit space. I can't be on a Nudge forum and not talk about, Pragati. It's a program that we've built, which focuses on AI for social good. It focuses on empowering non-profits with AI tools to address some of the most pressing problems of the country, be it education, agriculture, healthcare. So I think when you talk about AI, it cuts across all facets, of work. And as Meta, I think our goal really is to empower every citizen, every creator, every SMB with not just the platform and the tools, but also with the confidence to navigate this new digital Bharat.
I love that. Divya, I won't let you go before you tell me your favorite Pragati nonprofit and why.
That is so hard. You can't ask me to choose. Like, can you ever choose between your kids? But I think a few of them are doing some noteworthy stuff. iSTEM, for example, is working with people with disabilities, and Farmers for Forest is really working in the area of livelihood for farmers and promoting biodiversity. So yeah, I think those are some noteworthy ones.
Those are also some of my favorite organizations. I'm also very happy with seeing what Samina is doing with Right Work Foundation as a part of. I think you should all check it out. I think it's an incredible use of Meta's technologies in giving people access to benefits, government benefits, in their languages wherever they are. And they're seeing some very exciting early results. And I think, again, as we think deeply about how do these apps become new infrastructure, I think that means a phenomenal example of ways people, like, it can actually empower communities. Riddhima, I think you rightfully said that Google Pay is the front page of these technologies for our communities. Every time I go back to the US, I have to remind myself to carry a wallet. And I've definitely been in many situations where I have to ask my friends, sorry, I forgot my wallet. Because I was expecting a Google Pay QR code in San Francisco. We'll get there someday soon. But Riddhima, how is Google Pay investing in vernacular content, voice-enabled features? We've been talking about languages a lot on this panel, and regional discoverability to make digital payments more inclusive and accessible across India's user base. And would also love to give you this opportunity to talk about any other things that Google Pay is working on to better serve these communities and these entrepreneurs.
Yeah, we totally understand that true inclusion requires transcending from English or text-based interfaces. So we are actually deeply investing towards reducing the literacy, the language barriers for our users, so as to make digital payments and commerce truly universal. For vernacular language support, so Google Pay for consumer as well as business app, they both provide multilingual support. They come in more than 10 plus languages, right from onboarding, Bengali, Marathi, Tamil, Telugu, all the top ones at least at this point in time, the major ones I would say. And right from onboarding stage, enabling these entrepreneurs to start interacting with these apps in their native language. All critical communication, any alerts, any FAQs are also today in that vernacular language itself. And this essentially is not mere translation, but the go-to for these entrepreneurs, providing in a lot of comfort there. We are also investing in enabling voice-enabled search and voice-enabled inputs on our apps and providing other clear instructions in local languages. In the physical mode, we have these sound pods, which are actually providing audio confirmation for all the payment received, which is very critical, like I said, in a very busy, fast-moving transactions in a low literacy environment out there. For regional discoverability, through Google Maps, the Google My Business profile, which is out there, it enables local language search. For example, people can search Mehendi Wali near me or a Punjabi Jutti shop, and it comes out there. It is very empowering tool for these small businesses in the terms of regional discoverability out there. And hence, like, we are providing accessibility through these language, through these regional discoverability, and helping our merchants grow overall. That's where we are.
Thank you for that, Riddhima. I would love to now come to Sushantji. Sushant, how do local intermediaries like self-help groups or community leaders help bridge the digital divide? Could you talk to me about what made Trickle Up succeed? What were community mobilization strategies you used to make sure that these technologies were actually working the way they're supposed to?
In fact, initially we struggled with this. We realized that if we go as a app agency, as an NGO, as a corporate, they're not going to accept this, because still I remember first day when the mobile device was distributed, a woman took phone and by mistake, she put the vibrator button and the phone vibrator and she just left on the phone. So we started from that day. We felt that the local movers and shakers of the village, whether the headman or in tribal area it's Pahan or the school teacher, if we don't engage these people, we'll have to work for years and years to accept this. So we feel that self-help group, the local federation, the local functionary and the frontline worker, they play a very important role in penetration of this app and the digital empowerment access. But I think many people are left behind because of the lack of access, tools and platform, because we directly go to the participant and start talking to it. We have a concept called a smart Sakhi. And this smart word came from when we gave them the smartphones So we asked them, we want to name you coach. They said, no coach. They said, a smart Sakhi. A smart from a smartphone, a smart, and Sakhi is a female friend. So we have a provision that on each 15 women, we have a young digital coach who is called Smart Sakhi. And she's the one who does individual coaching, group coaching, and it goes on for 3 years at least. We also felt that building trust and acceptance will not come from us. It comes from the local stakeholders, SHG. We also felt that the community, that the capacity building and on-holding and hand-holding was very important because, as I mentioned, it's not a one-time show that you go and train like educated people and they learn. Third, localization and contextualization is very important. In fact, we struggle when we got the feedback. We struggled to localize those things, video. In fact, for the whole, we didn't get any voiceover in whole language because we didn't find a single educated person there. And we also felt that creating peer learning network, as we don't give a mobile phone to everybody, so there's a shared device model. 2 days, Monday, Tuesday, you are going to keep phone. Wednesday, Thursday, you, Friday, Saturday, I am, and see the smart Sakhi. So on Sunday, the phone goes to her for like seeing for the data, what all has like happened. And fifth, the most important thing which we felt that linking them with government schemes. So now we don't have to go and tell them. In fact, it's they who tell them, ek aur scheme aa gaya sahab. So I think it's very important कि जो हमारे services हैं और जो हमारे government schemes हैं, so they are attracted. But our learning is this: we shouldn't go and start unless until we build a cadre of frontline worker. That acceptance and trust, it will never come in our program. Now they are so much expert. वो हमको कहते हैं कि आप आइए, आपको ऐप के बारे में बताते हैं, ऐप क्या होता है. And the best thing which we found, that the project was not started keeping vision, but now they say, Delhi में tomato 120 rupee kg मिल रहा है. So they bargain. They see the weather forecast. So and they've also started digital marketing now. So they get the benefit, and the best part, I feel that middleman is out from the entire scene. And we feel that SHG, the local federation frontline worker, they play the most important role, and I'll say that they're the change makers.
For sharing that. I think Pallavi will come to you now. I think it is well known that you're an expert in CSR-led innovation and an expert at, like thinking deeply about how do we bring CSR partnerships to underserved and remote regions. Would love to give you this opportunity to talk about what are things you have seen in your experience that work really well as with CSR partners creating an ecosystem of solution providers in these communities, and would love for you to add on to what Sir was talking about here.
Sure, thank you. I'm sure you're reading from that bio that my team had shared a little. Anyway, so taking a cue from Sushant where he ended, the program that we work on together never came as a CSR project. It had a very different vision. So when we started out and when I joined, that was one of the first projects I was given to lead. And I was skeptical, and I'm saying this in front of this audience, that women who have never seen a basic phone, have never touched it, how are they going to use a smartphone? Like the instance that Sushant mentioned about the vibrated, it fell and she ran off. And we were worried that women will probably not be allowed to keep the phone as an asset for herself because the family will take it up, they will use it. And we thought they might sell it also for money. But nothing like that happened because, what Sushant said about building that trust, building that rapport with them, going into the community, understanding what exactly is the need is very important at it. At Tata Communications, livelihood is a very important priority area for us. Our projects mostly focus on women. So 85% of our project participants around that are all women and young girls. So most of our apps, digital platforms, whatever, is whatever we use it, wherever we have developed it, or we are taking it from somewhere else, we try and make sure that it's easy to use in a way which women can also understand, because again, a lot of disparity there as well. One thing that we have done, and Tata Communications is a B2B business, so there is no way that we can use our infrastructure to actually help these communities. So we have found another way to do it, because we have human resources, we are experts in this field, whether it's cybersecurity, AI, or anything else. So we are using those expertise to help communities, whether it's preparing module. I'll take an example of one of our youth skilling program. Cybersecurity was something that the partner was looking at to develop, and they were looking for someone who can create those modules. Then we said, why don't we get our colleagues from Tata Com to develop it? So we developed a program. 6 months down the line, they were the first batch of 30 students from marginalized community were taught or trained on cybersecurity by our colleagues. So while it also increases the visibility of the work that Tata Communication does in the social impact sector, it also helps us to support communities through business. May not be through the product or what our services are, but in a different way, by going through the human resources or the human expertise that we have. For other projects also, COVID was basically a turning point for us, because I think before that we didn't have so much of digital platforms where women or whosoever is being trained. So COVID actually helped us do that, and now it's become easier for us to develop this program in a better way. One thing also that we have learned is when you develop these platforms, your project cost sometimes goes down, because you don't have to have a physical center somewhere where they're being trained. So I'm saying that when you use a lot of digital infrastructure, you of course need a physical space and everything, but there is a way to also look at it from that perspective, where you're trying to cut down on resources and on when it comes to commercials basically. One thing that we have done through our employees is also become part of the project. So if there is a resource that needs to be provided, a training that needs to be provided, we do it through our employees or colleagues. Then that automatically creates that space within the project basically, where they can go to the communities and work on ground with them. So these are examples of where I would not say that we are using infrastructure from Tata Communication, but we're using our human expertise and human resources for that matter. So it's a very different way of looking at using your resources in the community.
Doing really well on time, which is a miracle. I think the panelists have been amazing. Final question from me, and then we'll jump to audience questions. Urvashi, let's go back to the design principles we were discussing. You've heard from Sushant, who runs an org on the field. You've heard from Divya and Riddhima on what Meta and Google are doing. You've heard from Pallavi ji on what Tata Communications is doing. What are we getting right? What are we missing? And tell us a little bit more about what you are doing and what role you are playing in the ecosystem.
Thanks, Manu. I have the luxury of answering after everyone else, so I can build on everyone's comments. But let me try and outline a few key kind of design principles. I think when we're designing or building apps for users from less privileged backgrounds, and I think some of that has already been mentioned, and maybe a few ones that haven't been mentioned yet. I think one which is quite simple is that we really want to prioritize simplicity and cognitive ease, right, when we're designing these applications. So you want minimal setup to have a task. You want to avoid technical jargon. You want to have a progressive way of also learning on the app, on how you should be using the app. I think the other point that came out quite clearly also in remarks by the other speakers was to really leverage AI for multimodal interaction, right? So you can interact in voice, you can interact in text, you can switch between them. So really to leverage that, and to also leverage AI for linguistic diversity, right? To be able to cater to build apps in different languages. Another third principle, I think, is to really build for intermittent connectivity, right? As we know, in many places, connectivity is patchy, and you need to design for that intermittent connectivity, and also design for low-tech hardware, right? Like the hardware may not be the kind of hardware that you and I are using. Again, a point that came out so well in your remarks was really around kind of engaging local intermediaries, right? Thinking about the role of local intermediaries as we're designing these app infrastructures, and what that interaction with that local intermediary will be, and how they can be included in it, because that kind of relationship is very crucial for trust, for adoption, so on and so forth. Something that I didn't hear, which I think we need to also we need to be designing consciously for, is also very easy grievance redressal, right? We need to make sure that grievance redressal mechanisms are easy to use, are responsive, are quick, because that's how you really build trust, right? If there's a long lag in your grievance redressal mechanism, you're not going to be building trust in that manner. And I think the two other points that I'd like to add, which is building on what everyone is saying, especially when we're talking about women users, and this is a lot of the work that we do. We've been doing a lot of work looking at technology-facilitated gender-based violence online, and our research by many others show that the violence that women face online is one of the biggest reasons for them to actually stop using digital services, and not using digital services then actually has an impact on their access to livelihood opportunities, has an impact to their access to rights, right? So it's very crucial for them to be able to stay online. And so from that perspective, I think one of the things we need to do is to design for anonymity, right? To design for anonymity, design for safety, and design for choice. So for an example, and like you were saying, we need to account for the fact that women are using shared mobile phones, right? So that might mean you want to have a kill screen, for an example, right? So that that you can quickly switch what app you're using, or at least for someone who's looking at your phone, they don't know what app you're using. You might want to think about allowing people to be anonymous, right? Or use pseudonyms online so that they don't have to reveal their true identity online. And we've seen some really excellent examples of that in the Indian digital ecosystem as well, which allow women, for an example, to remain anonymous. You want to ensure that your app doesn't require location sharing to work. So a lot of apps actually require your location sharing to be on for the app to work. Right? Now, location sharing is a way that you can surveil women, right? And you don't want to have that built in. So turning off those kind of features, I think, is really important. And then finally, I think we need to think about data minimization, right? When we're building these apps, marginalized users face disproportionate risks when personal data is being shared. So you only want to collect what data is necessary, use it only for the stated purpose, and then delete it afterwards, right? And this might mean also building things like consent firewalls in your application. It might mean between welfare systems and identity systems and payment systems, for an example. It might mean conducting data protection impact assessments before rolling out applications, right? And again, particularly thinking about women and other kind of marginalized users when thinking about what it means for them to be sharing their data and the sources of vulnerability that could create for them. And then finally, just to kind of leave with an overarching kind of principle is that, we must build applications that protect people despite their capacities, not because of their capacities, right? And that's a really important point, because sometimes we build and we say, okay, you can protect yourself if you have the adequate level of digital literacy, or if you have access to XYZ. No, we should build it despite their capacity. So regardless of what your capacity is, protection should be built in as a kind of default in these systems. So these principles are some of the work, reflect also some of the work that we've been doing at Digital Futures Lab, which, like I mentioned, looks a lot at online violence against women, also looks at the structural issues, which is where I kind of started, looking at how do we create kind of the structural conditions for greater agency and less dependent on platform infrastructures.
Thank you so much for doing that. We have questions, which is very exciting. Thank you for submitting them. We're going to move fast. We have 7 minutes left. So if I ask you a question, you have 45 seconds to answer it. Sounds good? Okay. Question number 1 is to Urvashi. So you are not resting. And it's also to me, which is exciting. What are your thoughts of AI becoming an opportunity leveler versus a chasm widener for the Indian population?
I don't think I can answer in 45 seconds. I think, just put it very simply, I think we have a lot of anecdotal evidence, right? AI can definitely be good for some people. It will not be good for some people. It will be good in some contexts. It will not be good in some contexts. This is not a binary, right? But I think what we really need to do is build empirical evidence to understand the conditions and the factors in which it is an empowering actor, and in which conditions and the factors and conditions in which it actually disempowers people, and then work to kind of widen those opportunity spaces. Right now, I fear that we're really just going on kind of feels good kind of vibes and anecdotes, right? We don't really have enough empirical evidence.
100% agreed. I think one of my favorite professors in the world, Professor Kentaro Toyama, who teaches at University of Michigan, has this like general rule on tech for good, where he says technology amplifies existing human intent and capacity. So if the intent is good, like if systemic intent is good and the systemic capacity exists, technology is great. And AI can be great too. And we see examples of that on the stage, right? So the kind of work that you're doing, Divya, in Andhra Pradesh, right? There's systemic intent, there's systemic capacity. You've built that capacity, so you see good things. But if the intent is not good, which happens a lot, right? Or if the capacity is not there, right? I think technology can create systemic harm. And he has an incredible book called Geek Heresy, which is my favorite depression book because it is extremely depressing to read. It is 20 years of tech failures and creating impact. So I would not read it on a fun day. But it's a highly recommended book as we enter an AI revolution and the hype levels are higher than before, to just calm ourselves down. We've been here before. But there are definitely very exciting things that AI enables. And I think that's exciting. I have a question on concerns on safety and security across financial fraud, data, and identity theft for women entrepreneurs. Riddhima, given the pressures of instant transactions, fraud risks, and digital vulnerability, how do you at Google Pay ensure financial and emotional safety for small entrepreneurs and sellers on your platform? I recognize there's not a 45 seconds answer, but would love to. I mean, you're leaders in this space. How are you thinking about solving this?
No, so truly acknowledge, given the, I would say, lower literacy and high dependency, so there is like a great focus on the overall financial and emotional safety for our merchants out there. We use AI ML, I would say, to kind of identify patterns, fraudulent patterns in the transactions. These keep running behind in the background, trying to flag, trying to prevent any suspicious transaction from happening, and thereby protecting our consumer and merchant funds both. There's a lot of focus on preventative education in our user experience and design itself. So there's like a fully dominant flagship warning out there in our merchant apps, which says that no pins are required for receiving payments on Google Pay, like for merchants out there. This essentially helps in kind of preventing any social engineering scams and all which could happen for our merchants. Overall, our apps, there's an additional layer of security wherein there's a PIN protection out there. It's a critical first line of defense in case the phones get lost or stolen or anything out there. There's a mandatory report feature out there on our apps, which allows our users to report any suspicious transaction which could be out there, and so that they can immediately reach out to us. Additionally, our sound pods, they do not just act as a convenience feature, they actually act as a safety mechanism. They allow merchants at storefront to ensure that a payment has actually happened at the time of goods delivery, and prevents them from maybe any verbal misdirection, from any counterfeit screenshots and all which get shown, and especially in low literacy environments out there. We provide 24/7 dedicated localized support, like in different regional languages, to merchants, wherein they can reach out to us anytime for any security warnings on any issues, any suspicious transactions that they see, which they want to understand real time and they cannot. And our ability to provide this support in different languages, that essentially takes care of, I would say, it helps in reducing a lot of emotional vulnerability and transaction anxiety out there. And one last thing, I think we also, in order to enable an overall trust and to ensure that our merchants, they feel in control of their money, we actually allow settlements at whichever frequency merchants want. So at times, so merchants can choose for instant settlements, merchants can choose for end of day settlement, whatever is it that they like. We want them to be in full control of that. We also allow them to add multiple settlement accounts on the platform. That ways they can choose to redirect their money whichever way they want to do that. And also in case of if we envisage any delayed settlements and all, we try to be very proactive again in terms of our communication and in different kind of languages and all to enable an overall trust in our users and to ensure that they are in full control of all their payments and money out there.
Thank you for taking that question.
Yes, I think it was.
It works out well. I think I'd love to just start with Divya. Is there any, I mean, the audience is predominantly civil society organizations. Is there any one final thing you would like to leave the audience with as they deal with their communities relying on these apps, the exciting parts, the not so exciting parts? Is there any tip of advice, any advice you would have for the audience?
I think working with the various, states, one thing that we've seen is technologies like WhatsApp can bring to the table whatever is intentional in terms of processes that are laid out to address the challenges within the society. What we can't do is tweak the processes. So what you see on our apps like, Manamitra or Amasathi in Odisha is a reflection of processes that are laid out. So a lot of the work that we're doing is actually credited to the intent of the state. So as you think about bringing about change, think about that intent, think about how you want to use some of these platforms to bring about change. I think that intent really starts with you.
I appreciate that. Pallavi ji?
I would agree with this has been a recurring problem for me since morning. I think, I really believe what Divya and even Sushant mentioned about, that, and Urvashi also said about, that we go with a good intent. Sometimes things don't work out because, there are a lot of processes involved. There is a lot of other, systemic changes and infrastructure challenges that there are. But either we wait for those structures to be better, or we wait for the systemic changes to change to a better way, or we move around those challenges and develop something which can be used right now, but given, it can also be enhanced at a later stage. So just we can develop something very big at one time, which will probably become difficult to use because those systemic challenges are still there, or we work around those challenges. That is one way to look at it. It's not a defeatist attitude, but it's how you have to work now, because some challenges we can't do anything about. You have to just work around it. Yeah. And if you have a good intent, I'm sure you'll do much better when you are on ground and you create those apps. And it's a multi-stakeholder approach that I believe in myself.
I appreciate that. Riddhima?
Yeah, my take is that technology is only 50% of the solution. The balance 50% essentially lies in confidence and literacy. We are all here wanting to solve for future, for convenience, and for empowering all our users out there. But in the end, I think it's a collective effort where we need to believe in the process and to ensure that we'll get there.
Amazing. Thank you. Sushant ji?
I'd say that transform digital access from technological concept into human experience. Unless until human experience is there, any technology will not happen. Thank you.
That's very succinct. I like it. Urvashi?
I can try and be even more succinct. I would actually argue that intent is not enough, that actually we need to look at how incentives align And it's only when incentives align across different actors that we'll see the kind of results that we want to see. And often we see that incentives are misaligned are misaligned. And that's often where things fall apart.
I agree. Show me the incentives, I'll show you the outcomes, right? Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I think you've had a phenomenal discussion. We are slightly over time. By my standards, this went well. In that, I'm usually 20 minutes over time. So this went really. Thank you so much for everyone for joining us. I think we learned so much across radical interoperability, the work that Meta is doing, the work that Google's doing, the incredible work that Tata Communications is supporting. And thank you, Sushant ji, for your wisdom. Thank you.